And welcome. David Levin here, Raising Your Game today. This is Tuesday, so we're talking about the mental game of sports and competition. Fridays are for the rest of our lives. This week, I want to talk about Pete Rose, the great baseball player. First, on a personal note, I loved Pete Rose. I was big into baseball as a kid during that time in the 70s. I lived in Spokane, Washington, used to go to Spokane Indians games. They were a farm team for the Los Angeles Dodgers at the time. I had a mitt with autographs from a lot of the players from that team who went on to the majors: Bobby Valentine, Davey Lopes, Steve Garvey, Bill Buckner. It was a pretty incredible group of players on that team. Pete Rose was with the Cincinnati Reds around that same time when they were at their peak. Just a historic team. I just have super fond memories of all of that. Pete was and still is the all-time hits leader. All-time. No one has more. No one will likely ever catch him. He also went on to be a successful manager, so you'd think he would be a shoo-in for the Hall of Fame. But it turned out he also liked to gamble. And he bet on baseball, which is absolutely prohibited. Worse yet, he bet on his own team while he was with them. And that got him permanently banned from baseball, which meant he was also banned from the Hall of Fame. You can imagine this has been a big controversy for decades, and it is a complicated issue. On the one hand, he has the most hits, right? You can't pretend that didn't happen. He's one of the greatest players of all time. The gambling had nothing to do with that. He claims he never bet against his team, which seems like it might also make some difference. On the other hand, you don't bet on your team. You just don't. He knew that. Everyone knows that, because it kills the credibility of the sport. It puts everything into question. Also, he lied about it and denied it for years, up until he finally confessed in his book like 15 years later. So the reason his ban was lifted now was because the current baseball commissioner decided that lifetime bans should be lifted after the person dies. And you can see the logic of that, I suppose, but it also seems to me that it does remove some of the deterrent in the punishment. It's certainly a loss to the player to carry that shame and never have the personal experience and satisfaction of getting into the Hall of Fame. But knowing that at least your kids, your family, your legacy might still see it, I don't know. Still not sure it's the right decision. But the lessons for the rest of us have to do with self-regulation and willpower versus compulsion and addiction. I open my book, Raise Your Inner Game, with this quote from Leonardo da Vinci: "The height of a man's success is gauged by his self-mastery," or the height of a person's success is gauged by their self-mastery. And you see that so clearly in Pete Rose's story. He was a hugely successful athlete, but his ultimate success, his legacy was profoundly hurt and limited because of his lack of self-mastery. In the moments when he felt the compulsion to place that bet, knowing how wrong it was and what sort of trouble it might cause for him, he did it anyway. The pull to do it was stronger than any resistance he might have felt against it. And that mechanism is the same for all of us. The pull comes from different things. I'm not drawn to gambling. In fact, I am repelled by gambling. For some reason, I absolutely hate the idea of losing money like that. Funny side story. My mother-in-law, years ago, before she passed, was a big Vikings fan. We were at their house one Sunday. There was a game on. I think the Vikings were down like a lot at halftime. But Joyce was a true believer. So she comes up to me with a twinkle in her eye and says, "I bet you $1 they win." And rather than playing along, the right thing to do, the only response I can think of in the moment is, "Oh, I don't really like betting." Totally missing the moment. She says, "It's only $1." And she was totally right. That's how weird I am with gambling. My issues are around food. I struggle every day with wanting more food than I need, especially fats and salty snacks and sweets. I love them. So we're all pulled by different things and also to different levels. There's a difference between a bad habit and a serious addiction. So it's different for all of us, but the mechanism is the same. Again, the moment comes up, we feel the pull, we either give into it or we resist. That is basically the whole story of our inner game. And the lesson from it, from Pete Rose, is that if we don't learn to get control of that, it will keep us from reaching our potential, both externally, like with our health and our finances. Impulse control is hugely important with money, and also internally with how we feel about ourselves as a person and our place in the world. I'm reminded too, back in high school, I was on the wrestling team for one season. Not a great fit for me. I'm not very competitive. I'm also conflict averse, which is funny for wrestling. But we had one kid, I remember really good, one of our top guys, intimidating. He was in a wrestle-off one day and he lost and he got really upset. He stormed out, punched a locker, broke his hand. And that was it for his season. One moment where he let his emotions take over basically ruined his wrestling career. Again, from Leonardo, the height of a person's success is gauged by their self-mastery. That is the big lesson in Pete Rose's story. We have to learn how to control our thoughts and emotions and impulses in the moment if we're ever going to have the success we want, and more important, become the person we want to be. Of course, that is what the Raise Your Inner Game book teaches you how to do, along with our Sports Academy training for athletes. Check out raiseyourinnergame.com for more on that. But that is the big lesson from Pete Rose. I hope that was helpful. This really is the core work for all of us in improving our lives. So let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, keep up the good work. I'll see you next time.